How you doing today, Coach?
Doing great, man. It's a nice day outside. Can't complain. Feeling good.
Yeah, it's not as hot as it was on Monday,
Yes.
which I am definitely grateful and thankful for.
Absolutely.
Because it was way too hot. I was outside working, and I was sweating my ass off. Tuesday, the temperatures dropped back down to what I would feel is good.
Yep.
Especially in the afternoon to evening time. It was very nice, windy, and nice hoodie and sweatshirt weather. And today, great weather again.
Today's perfect, man.
Great weather again. What episode is this, Coach?
This is episode 31, Coach.
Episode 31. Can you believe we've gotten this far?
Yeah. I love how we say that every episode now. It's like
I mean,
each and every week goes by, it's like, man.
Because it's true. It's because it's true,
very
man.
true.
It's true.
Yeah.
At one point, we didn't know how long we were going to last. At one point, we didn't know how good this could potentially be. And then we just kept taking swings at it, and kept tweaking certain things, figuring out things that work, things that don't work. And we have gotten to a point where we feel like we got the halftime formula for this.
Yes, sir.
For this, baby. All right, you ready? Ready to get into it, Coach?
Let's do it, man.
All right, you know how we always start off the halftime give and go, and you know the rules, 30 seconds per topic, no interruption. Whoever is speaking, they have the floor. And first on the halftime give and go, it's on me. Jimmy Butler for the Golden State Warriors is absolutely doing his thing. I don't know where the Warriors would be without him, honestly. But it's clear that he is providing them all the tools and all the things that they need to be a successful team in the playoffs and potentially make a championship run. And with Jimmy on this team, I think the Golden State Warriors have a very, very strong chance of winning the championship this year. All right, moving on to the next topic in the halftime give and go. Karl-Anthony Towns. Look, last episode we told you to get out the kitchen because you were not playing your best. And in game 4, which I was in attendance, the halftime was in the building, baby, for game 4 in Detroit.
There you go.
I was able to watch Karl-Anthony Towns make some 3-point shots that were out of this world, looking like a tall, big center Steph Curry, some baseline shots that looked like Akeem Olajuwon, and allowed the New York Knicks to go up 3-1 at that time, which we now know they're only up 3-2 now, Coach. Yep. All right, moving on to the next topic of the halftime give and go. Ty Jerome for the Cleveland Cavaliers. On you, Coach.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Ty Jerome's just having a career year, especially in this first round of the playoffs. He's putting up insane numbers, being the probably most influential role player that team has. Just shows how deep that Cleveland Cavalier roster really is. And Ty Jerome has been nothing short but a really, really solid six-man and a guy that's just providing a lot of flexibility to that coaching staff over there and the rest of the team as well.
All right, moving on. Jason Tatum, Coach, how you feel about him?
Yeah, feeling great. I've been a fan of Tatum since he's came into the league. People have been doubting him, hating him for being lackluster at times, for maybe not living up to expectations during certain games. But, man, the first 3 games he's played in this playoffs, because obviously he missed game 1, but from there, games 2, 3, and 4 absolutely balled out. He's averaging over 30 points a game, around 8 rebounds, 8 assists. He's putting up magnificent numbers. And I think this is his revenge tour. You know, everybody last year was talking about how Jaylen Brown is the face of the Celtics. I think Jason Tatum's trying to claim that title right back.
All right, moving on to the next one. Number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, Cam Ward. How you feeling about him, Coach?
Yeah, Cam Ward. I've been predicting this for a while. He was going to go number 1. There was conversations elsewhere, possibly them taking defense, but I had a gut feeling that Will Levis was not the answer anymore for them. But Cam Ward being that number 1 overall pick, they did sign a couple wideouts. They did give him Tyler Lockett. They still got Tony Pollard in the backfield. This Tennessee offense could make some noise, especially with new coach coming into town there. And I think Cam Ward is going to have a little bit of a chance to make some noise in his first year.
All right, and last but not least on me, Ashton Jeanty. Look, I'm happy for the kid. I'm glad he was able to go to a team that will really utilize his skill set in the Las Vegas Raiders. They really need him. Pete Carroll loves to run the ball. Geno Smith needs a running back. But most importantly, I'm excited that the Bears did not move up into the draft to draft a running back in the first round. I'm glad that they did not do that because that was one of the things that I was adamant would be a dumb thing for them to do, and I'm glad they wasn't stupid enough to do that. But again, congratulations to Ashton Jeanty for making it to the Las Vegas Raiders. And that has been the halftime give and go. Whew. I like that. 30 seconds of rapid fire.
Just firing from the hip, man.
Absolutely. All right, moving on to our favorite game. Coach, you ready to play?
Let's do it, man.
All right, our favorite game. Who's cooking and who should stay the out the kitchen? Number one for who's cooking. Look, this team is on a roll. Just getting right back into it. The Golden State Warriors, baby. They are playing their butts off. And the last time we saw Golden State on the floor, they took a Houston Rockets team and I won't say put belt to ass, but just showed them a masterclass on what it looks like to be a veteran team versus a team that's still trying to figure it out. Jimmy Butler played his ass off. Steph Curry had not one of his best games, but not a bad game. It was just a regular 17-point performance from him, something that you're not accustomed to, but something that was definitely needed for a 106-103 victory. And Draymond Green put on a masterclass on how to play defense and be impactful, even when you're not putting up a lot of gaudy numbers on offense. What's your thought about Golden State, Coach?
Yeah, I've been a believer in them since they've gotten matched up with the Houston Rockets. I wasn't a believer in Houston. I just think they have been a great regular season team, but we are seeing once it came down to the playoffs and more nitty-gritty basketball and more details are being hashed out in the playoff basketball. The Warriors are coming out on top, and I love the way their lineups and rotations are working. Steve Kerr's doing a fine job, but also everybody's stepping up and making an impactful use of their minutes in Golden State. And, Golden State just owns the Houston Rockets, I guess, because anytime they match up in the playoffs, Golden State's always taking it. So it looks like that tradition's going to continue. Steph Curry's Houston's daddy, I guess, so we're going to see how that continues to play out. But, yeah, shout out to Golden State because it's been a treat to watch them, absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to the next team that is cooking. That is your New York Knicks. New York basketball is back in the building, as they say. The New York Knicks are playing well. They look like a team that I won't say is a team that you don't want to play, but I'll say this. If you take them lightly, they'll put belt to ass very quickly. They are experiencing currently some injury issues, but they're finding ways to navigate the little slight nicks and pricks that a lot of their players are experiencing in this Detroit Pistons series that they're going through right now. But I do think that if they are able to get out of the series with Detroit, they have been battle tested a little bit more than anybody else in the Eastern Conference so far. And so because of that, it will give them a little bit more aggressiveness, a little bit of that wild animal that's been fighting for its life in the cage and finally set free to play against whoever they meet in the next round. So I think they're a very dangerous team if they can get past Detroit. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, no doubt. You kind of cover my point in that, this series against Detroit has probably been the most battle-tested series in the whole of the playoffs. Very physical series. Detroit's a physical, fast, young team. New York has definitely gotten tested. Of course, they're up 3-2 right now. Still have to win that game 6 in Detroit in order to advance. So it's going to be tough, but I think if they come out of this series, like you mentioned, they're going to have probably a way easier time, not necessarily playing against better skill, but just when it comes to physicality and kind of that last 2-minute type of, grind it out, gut it out. New York's going to be prepared for that, and maybe some of the other teams in the Eastern Conference won't be, such as Cleveland, right? Kind of going into that series, which we will actually right at this time talking about the team that they've been matching up with.
Yeah. So after we figure out that, let's move on to who should stay out the kitchen. And number one, man, the Miami Heat.
I'll take it right back from here, man.
Yeah,
from the top.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna let that fire truck play a little bit because it has been a dumpster fire.
Yes.
The entirety of the fire department has been called.
Yes.
The station has been cleared out.
Yes.
They are on site in Miami. Ironic that they're the Heat. It's been it's been tragic to see what has gone on in that series. Not necessarily surprising that the Cleveland Cavaliers swept them. I thought it was going to be a sweep. I just thought out of any of the play-in teams in the Eastern Conference that would have gotten matched up with Cleveland, Miami was going to put up the best fight.
Yes.
One could argue that if Orlando made it to the 8th seed, maybe they put up a better fight, but I didn't see why Miami would be beaten this bad.
Yes.
I haven't seen an Eric Spoelstra team get this manhandled like ever. It's very surprising to see, especially when you do consider some of the talent that still remains on the roster for Miami. But since Jimmy Butler has departed, playoff basketball has been a lot more trickier, as we see for this Miami Heat team. I'm telling you, if Jimmy's on this team, this series does not look like how it is right now.
No, I think if Jimmy is on the Miami Heat team, they don't get swept by Cleveland, and I think they possibly can push it to 6 games.
Yeah.
I'm still believing that Cleveland will win it, but Jimmy makes a hell of a difference, as we're seeing with Golden State right now. The Jimmy Butler effect is real. The playoff Jimmy is a real thing, ladies and gentlemen. But I'll say this. I think Miami did them a disservice with not realizing how important it would have been for them to find themselves in the 7 to 8 spot versus the 9 to 10 spot. They should have done a lot more work and tried a lot harder to try to move up into the ranks of the 7 and 8 seeds so that they could have had a chance to match up with Boston more than Cleveland, because I think Cleveland just is entirely too big, and the way that Boston plays would have matched up a little bit better for Miami in the way that they play. I honestly think that Orlando and Miami are just a tale of just matching up with the wrong teams for them.
Yeah, I agree.
Orlando would have had a much easier chance playing against Cleveland. They match up better. They're just as tall and lanky, and they can play just as slow or just as fast. They literally match up the perfect way, the same way Miami. Not saying it's a perfect matchup,
right,
but they would have matched up much better with Boston.
Absolutely.
So I think just for the sake of the matchups, Miami dealt them a bad hand by even thinking that they had a chance of matching up with Cleveland or playing against them. They're just way too fucking small.
Yeah.
Way too small. They can't do anything on the boards. Mobley is having his way. Allen was having his way. Obviously, Donovan Mitchell has his way regardless. And Ty Jerome coming off the bench. I know Peyton Pritchard got 6th man of the year, but there's conversations in my mind that Ty Jerome is making a case that he should have been considered or at least thought of for that award.
Yeah.
But moving on to who else should stay out the kitchen. And these are the individuals that I just want to look right into the camera and say, I hope I'm humble enough to be on a podcast. I hope I'm humble enough to, have these conversations. You know what I'm saying? Maybe if I take these off, I'll be more humble now.
There you go.
I'm a little bit more humble now.
Yeah, not too flashy.
I'm not too flashy now, so maybe I have an opportunity to, speak my piece. But you quarterback evaluators for the NFL, I want to say a lot of things, and I want to say it very bad, but, we are trying to be a cleaner, more cut show. But for the Patreon, when we get to this, it's going to be real down and dirty. But for you quarterback evaluators in the NFL, you have no idea what you are doing at your job. Therefore, you should stay completely out the kitchen, away from condos, away from lake houses. Don't find any brick and mortar anywhere. Not even a commercial space you should go to. You should be stuck on the streets and beat like a runaway dog. But I love dogs, so don't beat them. But we should beat you, because you have no idea what you're talking about when it comes down to quarterbacks. You have gotten it wrong over and over and over and over again, from Sam Darnold to Josh Rosen to LaMarcus Russell. I can go on and on about every single quarterback that you guys have said should have been a first-round pick, first overall pick. Should have been Ryan Leaf for sakes. Rex Grossman. I can go down the list of so many quarterbacks that you guys have sat here and told the American public that this quarterback is the best prospect since sliced bread to come out of college, and every team should be foaming at the mouth to get him. All right? But then you turn around and use the slightest of things possible to keep other quarterbacks from being able to be evaluated properly off the merit of their game and not necessarily your discrepancies or your dislike of their personality traits. I thought we were here to play football. I didn't know this was a pageantry. I didn't know I had to look sexy and look a certain way to come on the runway and get on the stage for the NFL. I thought it was just about how much I play ball. At least that's what I was taught as a competitor. So I just want to say, I don't know what it is with you quarterback evaluators, but every single year, you guys find a way to fuck it up for somebody when it comes down to the NFL draft. That's what I'm going to say for now.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt the quarterback evaluators have gotten it wrong so many years in the past. It's consistently happening year after year after year. Whether it's overhyped prospects, whether it's guys that fall way too late in the draft, just certain cases, quarterback evaluators, it really is just like we kind of talked about on the show. It's like when you're camping outside and it's pitch black. They don't know what they're looking at. Their hands in front of them. They can't see it, though, right? It's kind of that same analogy with them evaluating these quarterbacks. They have no idea. Literally, I don't even know what the criteria they are using to evaluate these quarterbacks. Yeah, they look at the film. They look at certain things, but I mean, it's so insane how many times they do get it wrong. It really does make you question, like, dang, like, how the heck do these people have jobs at this point and are able to still control the media as much as they have been?
Control franchises.
Yeah,
and
when it comes to storytelling, right? Because that's all quarterback evaluators have done is choose to tell a story. I never thought it was actually properly evaluating the quarterback position. So I definitely agree with your points there, and I'm excited to talk about a certain guy that I think people are getting it wrong with in just a second here. But that's been Who's Cooking and Who Should Stay Out of the Kitchen. Good little game. Love our game. All right. With no further ado, what are we getting into now, Coach?
The halftime report. Yeah. I'm happy about this one. Especially the first segment. It's a little bit lighter before we get back into some more heavier discussions.
Sure, yeah.
But the Chicago Bears, Coach, they had a draft.
They did.
They had 6 rounds of draft picks because I don't think they had a 3rd round pick.
Correct.
They had 3 picks in the 2nd round, but they did not have a 3rd round pick, so they were available to pick for 6 rounds. And on this lovely night, at pick number 10, Chicago Bears selected a tight end from Michigan at number 10, Coach.
We sure did.
Then we followed that up and selected a wide receiver in the 2nd round, our first pick. Then we followed that up and drafted a tackle for our second pick in the 2nd round. So we went offense first, Coach, before we looked at anything on defense. Mind you, by the way, all we did in free agency is address offense. We picked up one person. Well, I think only one person on defense. 2? Okay, we picked up 2 guys on defense. Yeah. None of them are
They're both starters.
They're meh. The Garrett guy, I'm not a
Grady Jarrett.
Grady Jarrett. I think he's at the end of his career. That's just me personally. I don't think he has. I think all his best days are still in Atlanta.
All right.
And then the other guy, he's young, but he hasn't proven anything yet.
Dale, okay.
Dale hasn't proven much yet, in my opinion. But we had the opportunity to get a Mike Green. We had the opportunity to get a James Pierce Jr. We had the opportunity to get another defensive interior to help along this defensive line.
Michael Williams was on the board too.
Michael Williams was on the board. We had the opportunity to get a lot of great defensive stars outside of Abdul Carter. And we went tight end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say his name. You say his name.
Colston Loveland.
What the hell are we doing, Coach? What are we doing? Now, I've heard, so let me be a little bit more objective and get out of my feelings about it. I've heard that with Ben Johnson, there's a strong chance that he wants to run a lot of 12 packages. So that's 2 tight ends, running backs in the backfield, 2 wide receivers out. Essentially, it's how he wants to navigate things for the most part. Because of that, the idea is Cole Kmet will be utilized as more of your blocking tight end and more so like your 3rd and 5 tight end, your button routes, your hook routes over the middle, your safety net basically for Caleb. while Colston is supposed to be
He's your vertical threat.
your vertical tight end threat. From what I'm hearing, people think he has skill sets of a Travis Kelce. From what I'm hearing, 6'6", really long and rangy.
Yeah,
great hands.
I've seen more comparisons to Sam Laporta than
Sam
I've seen
Laporta.
for Kelce.
I've heard some Travis Kelce.
Okay.
Sam Laporta is cool too.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that. Sam Laporta is the Detroit tight end, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So my thing about it is, it's not that I have anything against Colston. I just don't think that he was the best tight end to pick. I think Tyler Warren was a better tight end to pick, and he was still on the board at that time.
Yeah.
But you don't get Tyler Warren, you go Colston. This is the fact that you even went tight end at all.
Mm-hmm.
Again, my perspective is, where is going to be the help for Montez Sweat? I'm hoping that there's still some type of splash free agency move that can be done. I'm hoping. I don't know who we will go after to help on the opposite side of Montez, but if you're telling me that Dio is supposed to be the answer, I'm not sold on that. I don't know if you're sold on that. I don't know if you're saying that the kid we drafted last year, is it Booker?
Austin Booker.
Austin Booker. Is he moving to defensive end opposite of Montez Sweat? I don't know.
That's where he was playing last year.
Yeah, he was playing on the defensive end side, and he had moments.
Yeah.
He had some splash moments, but I don't know. Right? I'm confused. We addressed so much on offense that I would have assumed that we would have tried to address more things on defense coming into this draft, especially since the bulk of most of our money is being paid on the defensive side. So I would assume that you would want to get more cheap prospects in to kind of pipeline and learn the system, so that by the time the Jalen Johnsons and all these other guys are looking for bigger paydays, if you want to keep the money so that you can pay Caleb, you have these younger guys that you can bring up and make space for them when you refuse to give those contracts to the Jalen Johnsons, to the Kyler Gordons in the future, to, the Briskers of the future, to the Tremaine Edmonds. The line can go on and on, but
Sure.
Making that space so that when you pay Caleb, you still have good players on the field on the defensive side of the ball. That would have been my thought. I'm confused. I know we're going offense, but we can't forget our identity as a Bears franchise. I'm not mad at us for doing the things that we're doing on offense, because we do need to reach the modern age of NFL football. But let's not get so offensive heavy that we forget what really wins championships. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, so, I mean, just to... as far as the Colston Loveland pick in itself, I was too confused. I was also confused at the time of the draft. I'm like, oh, okay. Like, I would have expected Tyler Warren. But then after listening to interviews, after listening to other shows and podcasts and other sports networks and things of that nature, it really just does seem that what the Chicago Bears are going to be trying to do, Colston Loveland fits more into that scheme more than Tyler Warren does. And I think there wasn't too much of a drop-off between the two tight ends to make it like, okay, best player available versus scheme fit. I think Colston Loveland is almost up there with Tyler Warren. Some would argue Tyler Warren is better simply because he's a bigger guy, right? More bulkier. He's got wildcat capabilities, kind of more trick play abilities and things of that nature. But as far as your tight end that's going to go up and down the field and really, excel in the yard after catch game, that's your Colston Loveland. And with Tyler Warren, you really got to scheme him open. With Colston Loveland, the argument is he's going to get himself open because of how quick and agile he is at his height, his weight, and just the physical mismatches that he presents. So I'm not necessarily disliking the pick. I think there was better avenues to take. I think edge was definitely one of my concerns coming into this draft. I think tackle was still okay with, which I was honestly... If we're going to move further into the second round now, the Luther Burden pick was no-brainer for me. I think that one was excellent for where we got him at. at pick 39, he was arguably wide receiver number 2 in the draft, and he fell to us at 39. You take best player available at that point.
No, I like that one.
That was a great pick. And then just go to our next pick, Ozzie Trapullo out of Boston College, right? He's a tackle. He played both left and right tackle at Boston College. He's one of those guys. He's a pulling guy. He's more of a old school type of tackle. He's more of a run game type of tackle, but I'm sure with his physical attributes and with his versatility at both tackle positions, I don't see why Ben Johnson and new offensive line coach wouldn't be able to work him into pass pro and things of that nature, especially when you got Darnell on one side. I think they're really banking their buck on Braxton Jones being their left tackle of the future. And then you still have Karan that you drafted last year. Now you're bringing in Ozzie. I mean, you got two guys, two backup guys that are very, very young that could eventually step into positions to start when you still got Darnell Wright, who's only 23, 24 years old.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
What were the 3 picks in the second round?
Yeah, it was Luther Burden at pick 39. Ozzie Trapullo was the next one. And then our last second-round pick was Shamar Turner, the D-tackle 3-tech out of Texas Tech.
So
he was a great pickup at that pick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's my thought. Like, you could have got Mike Green at 10. You still could have probably got Colston at 39, or you could have got Luther Burden at 39.
No, you weren't getting Colston at 39. And
you don't think he would? You don't think Colston would have been there?
And I'll tell you why. Because Ian Rappaport and I forget Adam Schefter, the 2 NFL insiders, they said as soon as the Bears took Colston Loveland at 10, multiple teams stopped calling to trade up in the draft, meaning that there were multiple teams calling for pick 10, 11, 12, 13
because they were
wanted to take Colston or Tyler Warren. Once both of those guys came off the board, nobody was calling to trade up anymore, meaning that there was multiple
Colston
teams.
wasn't going to drop, basically.
Yeah. Okay. He wasn't going to fall further than 20, and even that would have been a very great value pick.
So maybe he probably would have got picked somewhere no later than 14.
Yeah,
like Tyler Warren and Colston probably would have went back to back.
Yes, yeah. So it'd be somewhere around that range. So I mean, again, just to talk about the Colston Loveland pick, like I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of it when it happened. I've kind of grown more into it now.
Yeah, I'm not against it. I just think like
we've had more needs, and I could definitely see that.
That was my only concern about it, was just like I get it. If your argument for Colston is that his talent was just so great and what you believe you can get out of him is going to be something so special that you couldn't pass him up, then okay, I just have to see it happen, right? I have to see that materialize. Because from my vantage point, a glaring need that we still have is who's opposite of Montez Sweat.
Yeah, and I think with that question, I think that's a question us Bears fans have. I think for the Chicago Bears and
they
their
think they have an internal answer.
I think their answer is Deo. I think when they did pick him up and they gave him $49 million over 3 years, that is starting edge rusher money. It's not all pro money, but it is starting edge rusher money. Right. So I think that's who they're banking their buck on being their edge rusher across from Montez Sweat, considering he's also 25 years old. Last season didn't have a great season simply because of how much of a dumpster fire the Colts defense was, but the year before that, he had 8.5 sacks with 60-plus tackles. So, okay. I mean, there's been glimpses and moments and bursts of showing us what he can do. I think in a fully starting role now with a very talented front line, when we're talking about the D-line, when it's talking about either Grady Jarrett, you still got Javon Dexter. Yep. Now you pick up Shamar Turner, and you still got Montez Sweat at the right or left end position. That's a very talented D-line coach.
You have, if nothing else, you have depth. I just don't know if you have ferociousness.
I think you do with the guys that you do have. Like, I think the great thing about picking up Grady Jarrett is now you're not going to ask Javon Dexter to be your traditional 3-tech, which is what they were trying to transform him into being. He's just not big enough for that. He's more of an explosive, faster guy. And I think with that combination of Grady and Javon's really going to excel this year. And I think we're going to see that big time.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that's the case.
Yeah. I believe it is. That's my prediction. That I really do think, especially since it's Dennis Allen calling the defense. He's a blitz heavy type of defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
It's gonna allow these tackles and our ends, with pressure coming in from either the nickel position or the linebacker position. It's gonna allow the edges and tackles to really find themselves more one-on-one matchups, or even have a matchup with a blocking tight end. You know what I mean? With them kind of just chipping and then going. And a lot of miscommunications happening. So, my only dislike of the draft was what we did at pick in the 4th round when we went with the linebacker, Hippolyte, I believe his name is. Ruben Hippolyte from Maryland. With the picks in the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, Ryan Poles, it was 2 were defense and then 1 was offense. It was guard. That's
my problem.
So here's the thing with that. I think in the last 6 and they've shown this in the last 6 drafts that Ryan Poles has been a part of, meaning even when he was in Kansas City, right, those last couple years, he's shown that in day 3 draft picks, he really does value the athletic traits of the athlete versus just the skill that's available on the board. Like sometimes he'll take a shot on a guy like Hippolyte, right, the linebacker, or Zav Frazier, the corner. He's tall, he's lanky, but he's very fast, he's very agile. Like he really just picks 4, 5, 6. Even the guard from Michigan State, Luke Newman, not necessarily the most sought after guy in the draft, right? Or by any means, because he was a day 3 pick.
But he shows signs of being an incredible
very athletic
athlete.
And very versatile. And I think that's where Ryan Poles has been willing to take his chances with the day 3 picks. Because, if you got a guy that is average and isn't much of an athlete, then there's no really space for him on the football field.
My only thing is that he decided at day 3 to go defense.
I mean, yeah, you could argue that, but I mean, at the same time, he did go Shamar Turner in the 2nd round, right? So he did pick up the extra pick from
that one pick.
Yeah, when he traded down.
I guess he saw something in Shamar Turner.
Absolutely, and he was one of the more sought after D tackles in the draft, and for us to get him at the pick and round we got him at was also a very high value pick for when we got him.
All right, so to sum this segment up, what would you give their grade?
I'm giving it from a high B+ to a low A-.
Okay. That's
where I'm putting it.
Yeah, I think I'm going to just stay flat at like a B-. I'll give him a B-.
A B-.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give him a B-. I got to see some things materialize. I have to see Colston become the player, the tight end that they want him to be. I have to see if this defensive line is as intact as the Bears are inferring by not selecting edge and getting just the one defensive interior player in the 2nd round. That's telling me, like you said, that's inferring to us as Bears fans that they feel very strong about the current state of their defensive line.
I also want to add, I think they do believe in Austin Booker taking a decent jump this year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They believe in the current state of their defensive line and the personnel that they have. They believe that they have something cooking and special there. So that's something that I would just have to wait to see materialize. So I think right now, that's the reason why I'm giving a B-.
Yeah.
I'm not happy about some of the decisions in the first couple of days. I feel like we missed out on some very good defensive prospects that could have helped this defense a lot, because I felt like we have addressed and over-addressed our offense, in my opinion. Like, I feel like we have overly done it to forego some of the things that we could have done for the defensive side of the ball. Because the defense, although we see it as a stronger point for this Bears team, there are still some things to be highlighted about this Bears defense, most notably how our defensive line is not as impactful as it should be. And maybe that is just the addition of Grady Jarrett. His name is so confusing sometimes. Grady Jarrett. Maybe that is just the inclusion of him that changes the entire dynamics of our defensive line. Maybe that is. Maybe Dayo becomes way more explosive, opposite of Montez Sweat. I don't know. Those things are left to be materialized. So we'll see. Yeah. But yeah, B- for me, B+ to A- for you. All right.
Cool.
That has been the Bears recap of their draft, and now moving on to a segment that will allow us to explore some various amount of opinions and thoughts. We watched the NFL draft day one expecting certain things to kind of happen, right? At draft pick number 1, the Tennessee Titans are on the clock. They select Cam Ward. Then we find out the Jacksonville Jaguars are making a draft day trade with the Cleveland Browns to go from 5 to 2.
Yep.
And we say, okay. Well, we know they got Trevor Lawrence, so we know for sure they're not drafting Shedeur. And they take Travis Hunter, his teammate from Colorado. No surprise. We assumed that Travis Hunter was going there. But then at number 3, all eyes are on number 3 because this is where we have been constantly debating back and forth about would Shedeur end up going to New York, and I've been saying for the longest time that I do not think he was going there, and I didn't think he was going to Cleveland.
Yeah,
but we'll wait for that one.
Yep.
Shedeur does not get drafted by the New York Giants. He gets drafted by, the New York Giants take Abdul Carter at number 3. Nobody's upset. We think Abdul Carter is going to be special. Hell, that was a player that I wanted the Bears to move up and move up and get. So now you're looking at New England and you're going, well, they're not going to draft him.
No.
New England doesn't draft him. They get Will Campbell. We keep going and move on to the Las Vegas Raiders. We go, maybe.
No, you even go Cleveland at 5.
Oh, Cleveland at 5.
They traded down, right?
Yeah, but they went defensive interior.
Yeah, they went Mason
Graham.
Graham.
Went Mason Graham.
Yep.
Right? We thought, good point. At 5, you thought maybe Shedeur would go here. Maybe this is why.
Yeah.
They moved from 2 to get some picks, blah, blah, blah. Now they can grab Shedeur and get some extra picks. They didn't grab him at 5. So now the whole world is like, what the hell is going on? Then we get to the Raiders at 6 and you say, maybe there's a chance here. Maybe. No.
It's Jensen.
They go Ashton Genty. So then we go, all right, look.
So like, okay.
Okay, look, this is starting to get a little different.
Yeah.
We get to the Saints. The Saints
Saints are at 9. Okay.
Yeah, the Saints are at 9.
Yep.
The Jets wasn't going to get them.
No.
They have Justin Fields. And 8 was, who's at 8? Who was right before the Saints? I forgot who was at 8. But the other team,
Carolina Panthers.
They're not drafting. They got Bryce Young. So we assume that at 9, the New Orleans Saints may take Shedeur because there may or may not be belief in Derek Carr. They don't take him.
Nope. They take Kelvin Banks.
They take Kelvin Banks, tackle. So now we're sitting here and we're going, well, Cleveland pass, New York pass, Vegas pass, New Orleans pass. Now here's what I thought was going to happen. The whole time I was saying Pittsburgh is going to end up with Shedeur at 21.
Yep.
I had been saying that for the longest of time. We get to 21. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, who still, by the way, have no quarterback on hand, they draft a safety.
No, they took Derek.
Oh, they took
Harmon,
Derek
D tackle.
Harmon, the D tackle. They got Malachi later.
Yep.
The Pittsburgh Steelers with no quarterback, Mason Rudolph as their projected QB1, passed up on Shedeur Sanders at 21.
That was my moment.
That's where I said, oh, it's some bullshit going on. Shedeur Sanders slides all the way to the 5th round for guess who to come and pick him at quarterback?
The Cleveland Browns.
The Cleveland Browns.
I do want to notably add, when New York made that trade to get back into the 1st round towards the end, pick 25, I'm like, this is it. This is where they take Shedeur. And who do they take? Jackson Dart.
Jackson Dart.
Yep. And that moment, along with just 4 picks before, when Pittsburgh didn't take him, I'm like, oh my God, it's happening.
But
even then, I'm like, okay, maybe he'll fall to the 2nd round, right? Maybe somebody will take him in the 2nd round. And then that passed by, and then we made it to the 3rd round, and it's like, he's still not being taken. And then he falls all the way to Cleveland, who, by the way,
took a quarterback.
Draft.
A quarterback before they drafted Shedeur. Dylan Gabriel.
They draft Dylan Gabriel from Oregon.
Not to mention the fact that there was another quarterback taken who probably should have never got drafted, Tyler Shuck.
Is that who Pittsburgh took?
I believe so.
That's who Pittsburgh took.
I
Yeah.
believe so. I could be wrong.
I'll check right now.
We'll fact check that one. But this kid had a terrible combine. They have him on meme reels for throwing a terrible pass across the middle that landed straight into the ground.
No, Tyler Shook went to New Orleans in the second round.
Oh, yeah. But that's the quarterback that they have on meme reels that tried to throw a pass over the middle and it went straight into the ground.
At the combine,
At the combine. So New Orleans passed on Shedeur, one of the top quarterbacks in college football this past season, for a guy that can't even throw a crossing pass over the middle.
So let me ask you this. The very simple question that a lot of kids like to ask and maybe a lot of people like to ask on a day-to-day basis.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Such a childish question. That's such a loaded question.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's get to it. Fuck it. You want to get to it? Let's get to it.
You go ahead, Coach.
I'm gonna go ahead. I was gonna let you go first because you said you had some interesting things to say. But
that's up to you, man.
I'll start off with this. Some people in the NFL expects certain people to act a certain way. Some people in the NFL believe that certain people need to embrace a certain level of personality because the NFL is such a privilege and such an honor to be a part of. So they believe that some certain people should show up with a higher level of humility than others. That is reason number one. Reason number two, his father is arguably as big of a star as the entire NFL. His father has also circumvented the rules of college football by not going through the ranks as other college coaches have done. His father has also been a pioneer in turning the transfer portal into an easy way to improve a college football program dramatically different than what it was before. The transfer portal has become free agency, essentially, for college football now. Players are moving like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to places like Colorado. They're leaving places like Alabama. They're leaving places like Ole Miss. They're leaving places like that, the blue-collar college towns who have been used to getting the best of the best prospects. And it all started with Travis Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Hunter is the beginning of the hate for Deion Sanders. The fact that Deion was able to get Travis Hunter to follow him to Jackson State University pissed so many college coaches off and pissed off college football to a point that there was no forgiveness for it. Because Travis Hunter still is the best high school recruit and the best college recruit, arguably, of the last decade. And he followed Deion from Jackson State to Colorado. And since Deion got to Colorado, player after player after player after player after player has been willing to leave college football programs to go and hang out with Deion because of his sauce, his charisma, his style, because it's Deion Sanders primetime baby and his pedigree. And the fact that he's a former NFL player, a dual sport player, a guy who played in the World Series and in 2 Super Bowls. Why would I not want to play for a coach that can really teach me the NFL game and has played it on the highest level and is a Hall of Famer versus this coach who just really loves the game?
And got a beer belly.
And got a big old beer belly, right? So Deion also contributed to the hate against his son. And then there are also, lastly, some bitch-ass NFL coaches who are such pussies that believe that having Shedeur on their team, if they don't win, could put their job in jeopardy for the likes of Deion coming in and taking their job. They're such cowards that they believe that Shedeur on their roster would be a distraction because if their coaching wasn't up to par, if the record wasn't up to par, then now they have to deal with fans saying, "We want Deion.
Mm-hmm.
We want Deion." They're scared of that. They're nervous of that. They don't want that experience, that monkey on their back. So those are 3 reasons why. And then there's some more. But I'll see what you think is why. And then I'll see if we share some similarities before I even express those others.
So for me, it became clear as day the day after the draft was over, right? After day 3 of the draft was complete, everybody started departing from Green Bay. And then stories, articles, things of that nature, news started coming out from different respective teams and camps. And, the first round picks were getting their press conferences and stuff like that. And then we heard anonymously from an anonymous person within the NFL, either coach, executive, whoever, owner.
Just somebody that don't want to put their name on shit.
Yeah. That Shedeur Sanders walked into their team interview.
It was the Giants, by the way.
The Giants. With such entitlement and such non-preparedness and so much lack of a care for being there that he absolutely hated Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, the person that was there, a part of the interview process. Yeah.
Don't know who it is. We could all have our own, theories there, but regardless, that story came out.
And then there was another story just quickly that compounded that and said that that information circled the NFL league so much that there were even other NFL owners and GMs who were like, just take his name completely off the board because we don't want to deal with that.
I was just about to add that. So because of that, we heard that story after the draft was over.
Yeah.
All these other GMs and executives heard it way before the draft even occurred.
Yep.
Like you said, taking his name off of the draft boards. This is what I think occurred at the 2025 NFL draft with Shedeur falling. I would like to just throw it back to the whole Eli Manning situation.
Okay.
So we remember that Daddy Arch, right, said, if you draft my kid, he's not going to play.
He didn't want him to play for the Chargers.
Right.
He wanted him to play in the East.
Yep. And so he gets drafted to the Giants, right? Or trade or whatever ended up happening.
I think it was a trade that worked itself out, yeah.
But he goes to the Giants, right? And from that moment on, the NFL has had a very bad taste in its mouth when it came to former player and son of that player coming into the NFL. Now here comes another opportunity or situation, right? Deion Sanders talking about his son Shedeur. Deion essentially, he is Shedeur's agent. Shedeur does not have a signed agent.
No.
I believe the NFL wanted to make an example of why former players that are having their sons coming to the league cannot strong arm organizations into giving in just to have that former player's son on the team. I believe it was a consensus around the league between ownerships and GMs for whoever needed a quarterback because, none of these teams that have quarterbacks, they're generational or long-term quarterbacks, were going to take Shedeur.
Right.
It just makes sense not to, even as a backup, because there's no point of taking him to be a backup. But these teams that needed quarterbacks, there was consensus. There was an equal message being spread around the league that wasn't said, but damn well was on display. It was that we will not allow these former players to just get their sons into the league and let them do whatever the fuck they want.
Or go to the teams that they want them to go to and stuff like that.
I think they also not only thought of the Eli Manning situation, but respectively, and I don't necessarily have a take on this, but viewed the whole Bronny James situation in LA. With LeBron essentially getting his son drafted.
Yeah.
I think the NFL saw this as the time to step in, needing to intervene.
And say, hey, we're not the NBA.
Put their foot down and say no more. If your kid's going to get drafted, he needs to do A, B, C, D, like you mentioned, right? Have the personality. Be more professional.
Quote unquote.
don't have a personality like an outgoing personality.
Mm-hmm.
Be humble.
Mm-hmm. Whatever that means.
Right. That is my take on what the NFL, on what actually happened to Shedeur.
Mhm.
Because I've seen a numerous amount of stories talking about different things. I think trying to just stir up argument and conversation about things that simply aren't there in this conversation. But I simply do just believe it is that joint agreement from multiple franchises and from the NFL itself saying no more, we're not going to take this anymore, and we're going to make an example of this kid. Which sucks for Shedeur because me personally, just to add on real quick, he was my quarterback too coming out of this draft. Almost close to quarterback one.
To Cam Ward.
Cam Ward.
Mm-hmm.
So, we know it's not the skill or the play or the matchups, right? The lack of competition that set him that far back. We know it's not that. What's your take on that, man?
So I'm gonna say this. First, I want to say the comments after the draft is complete bullshit. It's a way to cover up the narrative that is right in front of our faces. Okay, we can go back to John Elway when he came into the league and he didn't talk to many teams because he knew he was a first overall pick. But when Deion did the same thing, they had issues with Deion doing it. Oh, he was too loud. He's too boisterous. Telling teams, I don't need to work out for you. I know I'm not going to fall no more than 3. But when John Elway did it, it was no big deal. Let's parallel this again. When Archie Manning, who wasn't this great NFL quarterback, he was solid. He was an okay quarterback, comes in and tells the NFL, my son is not going to the Chargers. He won't. Matter of fact, I don't want him to play with any team going west. He has to play for a team on the eastern side of the NFL. We don't raise sand or we don't raise any hell because the Mannings are considered a darling football family. They're considered a special blood lineage.
Sure, yeah.
Because I guarantee you when Archie comes out from Texas, he won't be going to no terrible situation himself. Now, but all eyes will be on it. Mm-hmm. All eyes will be on how the Manning family handles this.
Yep. Because
if they go into the draft speaking about, well, we would like Archie to be here and these teams look a little nice and, I would like my grandson and I would like my nephew and I would like my son, whoever, to be in a nice position. And they're speaking about Archie and things happen to go in his favor, then we're right back to this conversation. So I think it's interesting that if they're trying to nip things in the bud, that they started off with Deion and his comparison and his situation to John by himself. And then they double down on getting back at Deion with his son in parallel to how Archie did things. So I think it's interesting that when they put their foot down, they decide to do it with the Sanders family.
With the Sanders family, yep.
I do think that's a little interesting. That when it's time to make a point, let's do it with the Sanders family. Not the Mannings, not when Elway had an issue, not when other people have issues. They did this similar to Lamar Jackson, speaking to the agent thing. The reason why they started talking and percolating ideas toward the beginning of the draft that maybe Lamar Jackson wasn't a quarterback and that maybe he should come into the NFL playing wide receiver, his mom was his agent and still is his agent. He didn't have a particular NFL agent working for him. So to make a case against him, he slid all the way to the end of the first round, so he couldn't get that top end money out of coming in the first 5 picks. First 5 to 10 picks, I think they get like 20, 40 some millions.
Yeah, whatever the bonus is, yeah.
So he fell all the way to the end of the first round because of his mom being his agent. Another point being made. You get our agents and you'll get paid. You don't get our agents and contracts look a little iffy for you. The NFL, no matter how much they want to pretend, they cannot remove the stain of their discriminatory and prejudice practices. This is a league that literally has a rule in place just for black head coaches to get an interview. Not a job, just to interview. It's the Rooney Rule. That rule still exists. based upon the fact that it's required. Because if not, Brian Flores wouldn't get a job. Mike Tomlin probably would have never got hired after Bill Cowher. Lovie Smith, he wouldn't have got a second chance after leaving the Bears. Tony Dungy probably would have been the only one. This is a rule that's in place specifically so opportunities can be granted. This is a league that didn't even believe black quarterbacks existed because black men weren't smart enough to play quarterback position. And it wasn't until Doug Williams for the Redskins at the time won a Super Bowl that we even had a chance to believe that a black quarterback could do that and pull it off. And that kind of broke a little bit of the mold. But still, to this day, when they want to downplay a black quarterback, what do they call him? He's a run-first quarterback. He's a running quarterback. And we thought we couldn't win with a running quarterback. Then Jalen Hurts came along, and I guess a running quarterback can do just fucking fine in the Super Bowl. So yeah, the NFL is the NFL. I love it. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I don't love football. And I'm a big believer of you sign up to be a part of things and you have to deal with the rules that come with it. Is it unfortunate? Yes. Is it something that Shedeur and Dion knew probably could happen? Yes. Do I think the New York Giants are full of shit with this whole he's bad interview and all this other shit? Yes. The kid has never gotten in trouble. The kid has never even gotten a speeding ticket, let alone shown any signs of being unprofessional or unkind to anybody. All his teammates love him. So now you're telling me in the biggest part of his life, he shows up to the New York Giants and shows his ass? Great. That's what I'm going to go with. A kid that's never done anything shows up on the biggest stage of his life and decides to show his ass to the New York Giants. Unless my conspiracy theory is the Cleveland Browns always had their eye on Shedeur Sanders, but they knew a narrative could get spun to make him fall, and they could get as much draft capital and everything else out the draft and still wind up with Shedeur in the 5th round. Now, if you're telling me that happened, then I think the Cleveland Browns are fucking geniuses. Or it could just be organically that bullshit happened and Cleveland looked up and said, damn, he's still here? Fuck it. Best player available. So, yeah. I hope Shedeur proves everybody wrong. I hope he goes out there and ball. At this point, all he has left is to win the starting job with Cleveland, which I think he can do, but we'll see. But that's overall my summation of feelings.
Yeah, I agree with your point there in saying that I also hope that Shedeur does end up succeeding, become that starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. Like I said, he was my close QB2 to QB1 coming into this draft. He's got the talent. You know, he played in the most pro-ready offense in college football, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was dealing with shitty protection or a lack of a run game. You know, he's weathered for that. He is battle tested, battle proven for that. I'm excited to see what he could do. But yeah, I agree. It is very, very saddening to see what happened to him. It's unfortunate that, of course, both times it's the Sanders family that has gotten affected by this. So I think I agree with your point. It's going to be interesting to see what happens when Archie Manning comes into the league, or Arch Manning comes into the league, and see what narrative starts spreading around then.
Yeah, so, let's see what team he goes to, and how much the Manning family does or does not participate in his draft day. I guess with the precedent being set, I think they should do a good job of just staying hands off so that it doesn't look like, you know, one thing can go one way and another thing can go another way. But I will say, kudos to you, because even though he didn't go second overall, you predicted correctly. The Cleveland Browns ultimately ended up with Shedeur Sanders. Yeah. Not where we thought, but you were correct. It will be Cleveland that got him. Yeah. So
there we go.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, Coach. There's more to say. I want to have a special Patreon about this.
We'll do one.
Because then I can really get my shit off. I'm trying to be clean in this one.
I know.
But yeah. That has been another episode of the Halftime Podcast. This is episode what again, Coach?
31.
We just want to remind you guys to follow our Instagram as always, follow our TikTok as always. You guys have been doing a great job looking at our reels, sharing things, commenting. We haven't been commenting as much back with you guys as we were before, but that's because we're just super busy trying to figure out content, trying to make sure we have everything correct. We're still looking for anybody to send us any posters and pictures and things like that we can hang up behind us on the set and we can shout you out. We're still looking for any dope artwork from that. Again, look out for our Patreon. I think we have 2 episodes now on our Patreon.
Yep, 3 coming this next first Sunday of May.
Yes. So be tuning in to our Patreon where you get a little bit more in-depth look at me and Coach and our perspective on different things, whether we're breaking down film or if we're just having a unique conversation that we feel like hasn't happened in the sports space. As always, you know how it goes, Coach. See red and bear down, baby.